Hi everybody, welcome to Acre Homestead. My name is Carrie. Thanks for joining me today. It's a little bit of an overcast, rainy day today, so I've decided to do some things inside. A long time since I've done some baking, so I thought I would make some nice cinnamon buns for Andrew. And I have another little, kind of a savory little recipe I'd like to try out, something I've never done before, and I thought I'd bring you along. Before we get started on making our cinnamon buns, I just wanted to show you what I harvested this morning from the garden. I was able to harvest this quite a large amount of kale and a summer squash. First year I've grown kale, and it seems to be doing a great job. So I think what I'm probably going to do is, because it's not Andrew's favorite, I'm going to probably cut it up and give it another wash and then freeze it so I can use it in smoothies or in some egg dishes. Okay, this recipe that I'm working from today, it's twofold. You can use it to make dinner rolls or cinnamon rolls, and I've used it actually for both. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take our water and our milk and get that warmed up to 110 degrees. So we need a cup of milk. And half a cup of water. We'll get that in the microwave for a few seconds here. And that needs to come to 110 degrees. Perfect. 114, that's okay, it'll cool down quickly. Okay, so now into here we need to add 2 tablespoons of honey. Whenever I need to get honey out of something, I always like to spray the spoon first. So 2 tablespoons of honey. That'll need a good wipe before I put that away. And a tablespoon of active dry yeast. So I'm going to need another spoon. There's another one's covered in honey. Okay, we mix all of this together. Just trying to get the honey off the bottom and worked into the liquid. Okay, we're gonna let that sit for 10 minutes and get nice and bubbly. That's why it's always good to read your recipe a couple of times before you do something. I just double checked and I forgot to put in the melted butter, so I'm quickly gonna melt this and we're gonna get this in here. I'm glad I checked. For recipes like this, when you miss a small component like that, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually is. It makes a big difference. So it's still blooming, so I'm going to give it maybe another couple minutes. There we go. Okay, I'm glad I caught that. Okay, as you can see, this has bloomed beautifully here, so we can go on to the next step. We need to add our flour to the mixer. It calls for 3.5 cups. gonna need to fill up my flour bin here. I do buy my flour in bulk and store it in a very large bucket, and I just fill up my small container here when I need to. There's a lot of flour. So there's 3.5. The recipe calls for 4 in total, but you get started with this and your salt, which I believe is 1 teaspoon of salt. We'll mix this together. And then we're going to add in the wet to this. Ooh, look at that, it's starting to overflow here. So I'm going to take this off so I don't spill it anywhere. Just going to get a spatula and make sure I get all of that goodness. I love the smell of yeast when it's blooming like this. And put the hook back on. And we're going to get this mixed. It's going to take a few minutes for it all to mix together. Once it does, I want you to let it go for about 4 to 5 minutes. Once it all incorporates, that's when you can determine whether or not you need to add the other half a cup of flour. You won't know until everything starts to come together. Looks like it's coming together quite nicely. We'll let that go. It's come together nicely. And we'll let that go on its own for a few minutes. And then I'm going to take it out and knead it by hand for a minute or two. Okay, that's gone on for a few minutes. Just going to move that out of the way. Get a bit of flour on the countertop here. Oh, that dough feels lovely. I'm going to put some flour on top. Not a lot, just enough so that when I'm working with it here, it's not going to be sticking. I do like to give the dough a little bit of a manual rolling before I let it rise. Just gets you to comfortable with doing it, but also once you've done this a few times, you can tell by the feel of the dough if it's ready or not, if it needs any extra flour, and this dough feels great. Okay, I'm going to roll this into a nice ball here. Like to roll it nice and tight like that. I've got a bowl with a little bit of olive oil in there. Just going to roll it around to coat both sides. We're going to cover this and let it sit for 15 minutes to rise. Okay, did a little quick tidy while the dough was rising, and I thought next we can make the filling. This dough is still rising, so we can make the cinnamon and sugar filling and butter that it's going to make this taste oh so good. I also wanted to make some sun tea today for you and show you how I do that, but there's not a lot of sun out there, so I'm going to have to do that another day. So we need half a cup of, oh no, quarter cup of salted butter. Put that to the side because we're going to make some frosting as well, so we'll need some more butter. We need 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar. And we need 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. That's about a half. And there's a full one. Okay, we'll give this a good mix together. The butter's not as soft as I thought it would be, so what I'm going to do is break it up into smaller pieces, and then I'll get the hand mixer out. Well, I cleaned the blender. I could just put it in there. Just seems overkill. Oh well. Let's do that. All right, well, I thought it was going to be soft enough to do by hand, but it doesn't appear to be, so let's get this put back together. Did a quick tidy, so this is now clean. I'll put a different blade on there, actually. Let's get this in here first. And let's get this mixed up. Smells really good. Let's have a look and see. Is that going to be spreadable? Yeah, that should be good. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, the 15-minute timer's gone off. The dough has risen nicely. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this aside again and get out my rolling sheet here. I need a rolling pin. This rolling pin is absolutely ancient, but it was my mom's, and so I like to keep it and just use it. Makes me think about her. Put this dough out. And what we're going to do now is we're going to roll this out to the shape, probably more of a rectangular shape. And this dough is beautiful. Trying to get it in a uniform. If you were making rolls, it would be at this point that you would divide this into however many rolls you want. But because we're making this into cinnamon buns, or rolls, whatever, we're going to roll this out. We're going to put the filling in, roll it up, and then cut it into pieces. And then we're going to let it sit and rise again. I think that looks to be pretty good in size. Just move this out of the way. All right, I'm gonna need one of my offset spatulas to spread that. Does anybody else have kitchen drawers like this? You have probably 1 or 2 drawers that has all your utensils in it, and when you're looking for it, you can never find them. Found it. Okay. So I'm just gonna dump this on here like this. Get it all out. Don't waste any of that goodness. Try and cover as much of this as I can. It is, granted, the butter's going to melt and it will spread out in there, but I don't want to leave a lot of open spaces. And then try and get it as close to the end as we can. I probably could have made more filling, but I don't think this should be an issue. Maybe I'll break some of these pieces up here so it spreads around a little bit better. Just trying to get an even coat. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to try and roll this together. I think what I'll do is just do a quick little pinch along the edge here to get that together. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go and get my pan. And actually, now that it's together, I'm just gonna kind of stretch it a little bit so it's a little more even. That's perfect. Okay, I'm gonna get the pan and I'm gonna cook these in. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil on the bottom of it. You can spread that around. We're going to have this sit and rise again. Just don't want it to stick to the pan. These pans here, I absolutely love these. I've had them for years. And no matter what you cook in it, I cook my lasagna in here and they get absolutely, like, you know what pans get like when you cook lasagna. All you need to do is put this in the sink with a little bit of hot water and let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes and everything just falls right off of it. It's absolutely fantastic. So I use this for everything. I actually bought a second set because I love them so much, just in case anything were to happen to this one. I'm gonna use my bench scraper and I'm going to first just cut off the ends a little bit because it didn't go right to the end, the flavoring. All right, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna aim for maybe 12. So if I cut this, oh look, I can do it up here. Maybe not so much. So that's about halfway. And I want to get 6 from each. I'm gonna do like 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's not good. Let's do it this way. And half, half. Might as well do this one too while we're at it. Can you tell I'm type A? I never use a knife to cut on these type of sheets. I always use my bench scraper, because it won't go through, but a knife definitely will. All right, so I'm gonna put these in here. Well, they're not all perfect. It's okay. I'm not about being perfect. Just want them to taste great. And where this all started from is the other day, it was my last day of volunteering. I volunteered at a school in town for a breakfast program. And I thought, well, I need to run a few errands afterwards. So there's this amazing bakery called Wanamaker's right around the corner from the school. They make the most delicious cinnamon buns and all their other products are just fantastic. And so I stopped by there and for whatever reason, they were closed just that day of the week for some special reason. So I've had cinnamon buns on the brain ever since. So this morning when I thought of what I could do on an indoor project, I thought, I'm making cinnamon buns. Okay, so they're cut. They're sitting in here, and we're going to let them rise for another 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, before I get the blender all cleaned up, I've rinsed out the bowl and I've washed the paddle, but I thought we might as well get the icing or the frosting made while that's still out. The recipe I have is for using half of one of these, but let's be honest, if we're going to make cream cheese frosting, you know, you're not going to skimp on it. You want a lot. I don't know what's the best part, the actual cinnamon bun itself or the icing. Okay, so it calls for cream cheese, softened cream cheese. About 1/3 of a cup of butter. So that's 1/4 cup, so it's just a little bigger than a 1/4 cup, so I'll put that in. I'll just cut it into a few pieces to make it easier to break up. Add that in. Okay, we need 1.5 cups of icing sugar. I'm going to dry up my 1/2 cup measure here and use that. Make sure it's nice and dry. I need to go hit my pantry downstairs and fill up all of my baking bins here. They're all getting low. I use the 3rd one here, so there's 3/3 as a cup. That should be about right. That threw my math into an overspin. Okay, and put a teaspoon of vanilla. I never measure my vanilla, I always measure with my heart. And this is Mexican vanilla. Once you've started using Mexican vanilla, you'll never go back to regular vanilla, I can guarantee you. Oh, and we're gonna need this. Locked in, start slowly. Ever done anything in a blender with icing sugar, you know exactly why I'm covering this up. Everyone's done it. Pour their icing sugar everywhere for the kitchen and themselves. It's a little lumpy. Just going to give it a little scrape down here on the sides. Maybe let it sit out a little bit more, and then I'll give it a little bit more of a mix and a little bit I don't want lumpy icing, but that might just warm it up a little bit. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's much better. Okay, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to scrape this into a bowl and put it aside, and then get this tidied up, and hopefully by that time the buns will be ready to go in the oven. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. The cinnamon buns have risen beautifully. So what I'm going to do is put these over on the stove. I'm going to turn it on at 400 degrees, and while that's coming up to temperature, we're going to start our next little project. So if you were going to be doing the dinner rolls, remember how I said this can be 2 different recipes, you would probably at this point, before putting them in the oven, you'd melt some butter and put it on top of the buns just for a nice coating. But because these cinnamon buns have butter inside them in the filling, I'm not going to be doing that step. So the next project we're going to do, I saw this on one of my reels the other day and I thought I definitely have to try it, is pickled tomatoes. So what you need is any type of little cherry tomatoes, and you use salt and sugar. You can use, some people put dill in. I'm going to put in some fresh basil from my garden, and actually some fresh garlic from my garden. And this is the actual last bit of garlic that I have from last year's harvest. It's now the end of June, and which is great timing. I'll probably have to buy some before I harvest, but my harvest is just about ready to come out of the ground, but then it's going to take a little bit of time for drying, but that worked out very well. Last year I planted a full bed and it pretty much lasted me an entire year, so that's really good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, this is a very clean jar. I'm going to put on the bottom the basil, and I'm going to peel the garlic. The skins are a little sticky. You can tell it's getting close. See the green in the garlic? It's going to start sprouting if we didn't use it. That makes me happy though. I was able to grow last year a whole year's worth of garlic for us to use. Okay, I'm going to cut them in half. I just find that releases the flavor a little bit better. Push that aside there. While I'm going to get the brine started, so you can use either white vinegar or apple cider vinegar. I think that I'm going to use white vinegar because apple cider vinegar has a much stronger flavor, and I don't know how that will react with the basil, so I think I'm just going to use regular vinegar. And you want 3/4 of a cup of vinegar. 3/4 cups of water. You need teaspoons I need. I misread that. So I need a teaspoon of kosher salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon I'm using. And 2 teaspoons of sugar. So you put that on the stove, and you don't put this to a boil, you just warm it up enough so that all of the sugar and the salt dissolve in the vinegar and water mixture. So we'll let that get started. I'll just give it a little mix to get it started there. Then I'm going to come back to the tomatoes. So what you need to do with your tomatoes is you need to get a skewer or a toothpick, and you actually skewer your tomato right through. That helps the brine soak into the tomato, also helps it for not exploding. I did go ahead and do all of these other ones. Didn't think you'd want to sit there through me poking all of these tomatoes. So now that these are all cooked, we're going to put them in. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. Fill the jar with our tomatoes. Just kind of juggle it around a bit so that they settle. When the brine has absorbed, the sugar and the salt have absorbed into the liquid, we'll pour that on top. I'm gonna let it cool down a bit though. I don't want it to come in here too hot. And then you can put this, let it come down to room temperature, and then you put it in the fridge, and it can last up to, I believe it was 2 months. Give it 48 hours though before you try it, just to give the vinegar and the solution, or the brine if you will, give the brine a chance to soak into the tomatoes. See how it's doing over here. Getting there. I love this thing. I love pickled things, anything pickled. I didn't get a chance to do asparagus this year because I was still in Australia when the asparagus was coming up. I did come home to some though, but I did do the pickled frog balls. I wasn't a fan, and I love Brussels sprouts, but it didn't turn out like I was hoping. I might try it again, but with a different type of a brine. So we're gonna try the tomatoes next and see how that goes. Because I use kosher salt, it's a little thicker than regular table salt, so it's going to take just a little bit longer for that to absorb into the moisture, which is fine. I don't know if you can hear the birds out there. Okay, the oven is up to temperature, so I'm going to put them in, and we'll cook them for about 15 to 20 minutes. Put the timer on for 15. The internal temperature of the cinnamon buns should be about 190 to 200 for them to be fully cooked. So while they're in the oven, this is cooled down enough I can put it in with the tomatoes. I was really excited. I did have some just generic plastic lids I was using on my mason jars because I use them for salad dressings and of course my jams. But when I store things in the fridge, I've been using these plastic lids, and they just were so hard to get off and on, and they were just giving me a headache. So I ordered some Ball leak-proof lids, and they are absolutely fantastic. But for things like this, when I'm doing pickling, I think I'm going to use those. I'm going to continue just to use my metal ring and lid. I just don't want these to absorb that sort of a smell or flavor. So the tomatoes are in, the basil and the garlic are on the bottom of the jar. I'm going to pour the brine in. Ah, perfect. And I'm just going to let that sit uncovered. I'll just place the lid on top. I won't seal it. We're going to let that just cool right down to room temperature, and then we're going to put that in the fridge, leave it for 48 hours, and then give them a try. I'm quite excited. Okay, I'm going to get the buns out of the oven, and we're going to test the temperature. When the timer went off at 15 minutes, I could tell just by the look of them that they weren't done, so I put them in for an additional 5. Oh, they look good. I'm just going to leave the oven on just in case. So we're looking for 190 to 200 Fahrenheit. They're still gooey in the middle. The 182, it's still climbing. That's showing 203. The ones on the outside are done a little more than the ones on the inside. Just to err on the side of caution, I'm going to put these in for another 2 minutes. I'll just keep a very close eye on them. I don't want them to burn, but I also don't want the insides to be all gooey either and undercooked. Okay, I'll set a timer for 2 minutes and then I'll come back and check. All right, the timer's gone off. that one's 199. It's still crawling. That's 207. Yeah, that's definitely done. The ones on the outside are cooked. They seem to be higher in temperature than the ones on the inside, and that's okay. The outside of them are cooked. I'm sure a little bit of a gooey cinnamon bun's not going to hurt anybody. They smell delicious, and I'm sure they're going to taste delicious too. They were so easy to make, and I know Andrew's really going to appreciate these. So we were able to make our cinnamon buns, our cream cheese frosting, and our new pickled tomatoes. I'll report back to you in a later video on how they turned out and what our thoughts are on that. But I'm excited to try them. So if you enjoyed today's video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to help us grow our channel. I want to thank you for joining me today with my little kitchen projects. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.